yo.
Welcome to Loop Sessions Masterclass. I am Schmings. This is a Artbeat Montreal and Ausgang Plaza presentation. Before we start, as always, we'd like to thank the Canada Council for the Arts for supporting beatmaker culture. Thank you. And with us here today, we have none other than the incomparable Lunice. Lunice, what's good, man?
Very steady and grateful. It's about the two words I can describe right now.
It's strange times indeed, and to be here now and to have you with us is an honor. In the 10 years that Artbeat has been active, you were one of the only names that we never got a chance to work with. So it really is a pleasure to have you here today.
That's crazy. I mean, we did that show once a few years ago, Halloween, Ausgang.
Halloween at Ausgang?
Yeah, right here, right in the studio here.
Oh man,
that was a while ago. I had a wild like Anubis outfit. Anubis mask.
You were Egyptianed out.
You saw that, yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I had a massive chain and all that stuff, and it was fun. But I've always supported you guys because anybody who just has the motivation to uphold creative freedom is the best way I could put it. In any style, because it's very much subjective in how you may uphold it. So I really appreciate and it inspires me in the way you guys keep this going. And yeah, definitely. So I'm a fan. So we're both fans of each other.
Exactly. That's the beautiful thing, because the love was always there, the respect was always there, and we're happy to hear that. And we're gonna take it all the way back. We're gonna take it even further back than 10 years ago. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. What is your earliest musical memory?
So the earliest musical memory would have been, which is interesting, because so I would preface with that I never was into the idea or concept of music as a child. It just didn't click to me, or I just didn't understand it as being like, oh, this is what I need to be, or it makes me feel a certain way. I was like, when I was a kid in elementary school, I was mostly into gaming. So my only exposure to music that I genuinely was interested in was stuff from like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy, like Japanese RPGs basically, and they composed the craziest music. But I only noticed that later when I got older and started making beats, and then backtracking to see how things were composed and being like, man, this is so far out. But I only later got to understand that a lot of my music influence come from the types of games I was playing. I guess in terms of sound design, not melodically, but just in terms of the kinds of sound that I end up using are very digitally playful. Most playful, especially, is my biggest focus. And yeah, it started out with just that. And in high school, around 13 is when I got into breakdancing. And breakdancing is what got me way deep into music, because it exposed me to funk music, jazz music first, which is so interesting. Some hip hop, obviously, because I was breakdancing. But I really, really got hooked on a lot of old classics. And the idea of looking into the layers of music came also from breakdancing, because when let's say if you're doing a battle or something like that, or you're dancing in the cypher, breakdancers tend to zone into different layers of the song. So when I'll be doing a certain routine, I'll just zone into the hi-hat and I'll just do my moves. I'll step into the hi-hat's exact rhythm. And the hopes is that the people watching would notice that I'm paying attention to this one specific side of the song that they might have not caught. And when they do catch that, they're like, oh, shoot, he's dancing on the hi-hat. That's crazy. So that kind of reaction made me really curious to what would happen if I were to try to make my own sounds and arrange it in the way I see fit. But then I was like, I thought about that when I was like 16 maybe, but I was like, yeah, I'm too busy with school. I'll just do it when I'm 18. Or not even, I said 21. And around 18 is when I started making beats. And I was like, all right, let's just try it out. Just get FL Studio, because Ninth Wonder is doing it too. I'm a big fan of his, so I just looked up what Ninth Wonder uses, FL Studio. Okay, I'm gonna use that too. Didn't think much about it and never looked back, and been using it to this day, and started making beats, but without the thought that music is my thing. I've always just had, I never had specific goals in mind, but I've always had purpose in what I do. because the idea was that if I were to set a goal, I always had this, is it fear? But like this kind of like weird, not fear. I've always found it weird that once you reach the goal, now what? And it's like, well, where are you going from there? Because I've witnessed too many people be heavily goal oriented, and once they reach it, they lose their purpose. So then what's the point if you just lose your purpose once you reach your goal? So I'm just gonna take the goal out of the picture and just aim for my purpose. And that purpose, I made it simple in the way that I just chose happiness as my purpose, and then I would create an environment around that would help promote that feeling. And I guess that's why when I make beats or when I play shows, I'm not reading no crowd, especially when DJing. They always say like, read the crowd. And I'm like, read what? And I'm supposed to read a crowd. But I only noticed that like 6 years into my career. I was paying no mind of that kind of stuff. It was mostly what made me happy, you know?
So in that line of questioning, what does make Lunice happy? JRPGs?
Oh, hell yeah.
What else?
I mean, to make it more of a general way to look at it, I guess what makes me happy is balance. It has to be, because I just look at, and it's fun, it's hard to explain, because the way I look at it is because I don't even consider myself even a music producer or anything. I see more myself as just a general creative, because before music, I was into graphic designing, photography, I was in theater, I did like wild French theater. That was the hardest shit to do, because
you're doing
je parle français, mais pas comme ça, là, comme vieux français.
Ça marche, ça
c'est un peu
passe.
trop fou. Là. Mais coming from theater, and then went into art school, which a really weird program called Intermediate Cyber Arts, which explored everything possible, and just it was basically my teacher going, "Oh, that's weird. Make it weirder." And it's like, "Oh, this is fun." So that's sort of how I find a lot of my interest in. Which is interesting, because looking at it now, I'm not interested in anything in specific, but I'm so fascinated and have so much passion for all of this, the art world. So in that in itself, the art world, art environment is what makes me happy. And if it's making me happy, then maybe that's my purpose. You see, maybe, because it's never going to be a definite answer. It's always going to be, what's the overall feeling and outlook I have for myself subjectively. Subjective, like, because your happiness is different from mine to whoever else's.
Of course.
So a lot of times people may misconstrue my happiness as not setting my bar high, but it's really like, honestly, I was already happy when I was broke, and my mom's crib was like most of it falling off, and the ceiling fell in, and thankfully she was working night shifts, and half of the living room was sunken in, and I was about to hit high school, and I was like, man, I either become ashamed of my living condition and where I am financially, or I just say, forget about it, I don't care, I just want to be happy. So I'm going to accept what I have and be very happy with it and move forward with purpose, right? And so I chose to be happy despite the environment. And that sort of is what shaped me to this day in terms of choosing my path. So when music started picking up, that was surprising, because I was posting stuff when MySpace was still a thing at the time. And I would do my own press shots, and then eventually I started doing my press shots with my fiance, and then started doing my own graphic design, cover arts, and then my own rollouts, because I wasn't signed to no label, but I wasn't looking to be signed to any label. I was purely doing it out of my own interests and wanting to explore graphic designing, marketing, all kinds of shit, just for fun.
Just your creative impulse.
Yeah, I just like to see what's the infrastructure of certain platforms that are publicly known as a interesting thing in terms of the entertainment industry, art industry, whatever it is. So it was purely out of that, purely out of just curiosity, wanting to know how things are done. And as I was doing that, people, I guess, started to be interested in it. Yeah. And they were like, yo, what's this? This is so cool. And that's how I ended up getting my first gig. It was Jacques Green that ended up finding me, because we both are big fans of Rusty, and he heard my music and he was like, yo, you make some pretty interesting stuff. Do you want to play one of my club nights on a Saturday? And I was like, then first it was like, have you ever DJ'd? And I'm like, actually, I never DJ'd. But just so happened I'm working on a set for a friend's birthday in a house party. And he's like, sure, play that set out. And it's mostly my music. So I played that out, and the rest was history. And I've been playing those similar nights with all of them, like with Jacques Green, with 6'2", and the whole crew. And they taught me about the nightlife, because prior to the nightlife, there was no night in my life. It was just straight, like, because I'm, like I was saying previously, I'm a gamer, so I don't see the purpose of wanting to go out at the club at the time.
Right.
So my first club experience was my first gig in the end. So I got to be a very...
Is this pre-Turbo Crunk, or is
Pre-Turbo Crunk,
okay,
just right before Turbo Crunk started. I did those first 2 gigs that weekend, and then we started Turbo Crunk, essentially. Sorry. We did a couple gigs, actually just down the street from here. The venue used to be called Zubizar.
Which was then called the CFC.
Yes. Beautiful spot. And
a few legendary Artbeat nights happened in that cavernous.
A lot of legendary historical stuff in that venue. It's just so interesting. I hopefully one day we get to cover that. But
let me backpedal a little bit because I love your philosophy as it pertains to inspiration and the things that motivate you. But if you had to distill it and like give people a couple of touch points as to what inspires Lunice, can you name like 2 or 3 like key people or things that inspire you to this day?
Definitely. I mean, I guess the more I look at it of what inspires me, because I can maybe, when I used to ask myself that, like, what exactly is inspiring me, I would, at the time, sort of just list out things like people not being afraid, or people trying to experiment with music, or people da-da-da-da-da. Then I was like, you know what, let me try to break it down in more simpler. And it really comes down to, if I see your purpose and you genuinely have it in you and you express it with passion, that is inspiration for me. Because I absolutely love championing people who have that sense of direction, because it inspires me and motivates me to also have a sense of direction for myself. So when I see an individual have a sense of direction for them, that's inspiring for me. So that opens it up to anything at that point. It could literally be somebody who just had 9 hours of sleep. Now he's got a better sense of direction. And that's inspiring for me, because then it's like, yo, you're really doing it. So I might just sleep 9. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I bet that.
So it really opens up to any situation when I say it that way. So what inspires me is people's sense of purpose. Yeah.
Word up.
Yeah.
So you said that you told yourself that you weren't going to get into all the riffraff until you were about 21.
Yeah.
Like myself, you were also a Dawson College alumni.
Yeah.
And if, like I know, that there are a lot of Montreal creatives in the hip-hop space, but in general, but a lot of people that came out of those walls. Do you have any memories of Dawson? Do you remember any of the rap battles or the dance battles?
Oh, my God. Yeah, the Conrads, man, like, that's what, CJEP is an interesting one, I think. We're lucky to have it, honestly, because a lot of other educational institutions in different provinces or countries, they go from high school straight into university. We go somewhere in between, and I think the interesting thing about that is you sort of end up with the most interesting teachers, because this is just an assumption. I don't know how the education system works, but this is just based off of how I've experienced it from going to Dawson into Concordia. So I'm assumption, that in university, the politics and the rules are so strict in terms of the selection of a teacher, the program of what they teach. So it naturally only attracts people or thinkers who want to follow a structure. So if you're trying to experiment in the university space, it doesn't feel like there's as much room. They make it feel like it, but from what I was studying, it didn't feel like it as compared to what I was learning in Dawson. Now for Dawson, it may not just be Dawson alone, but maybe the actual system of CJEP. What's interesting about that is you sort of get the teachers who are in between, who are just far out, ready to like show you the real. So when I went to Dawson, I studied in CinCom class, right? Cinema Communications. Yo, they were breaking us down how everything was propaganda. I was like, yo, first year, I was like, damn, this is how they be using this color lighting to make me feel this way. Oh, they be using the color yellow to make me to dry my appetite. Damn, like they taught us a lot of things, but it's because of the chairman and the teachers surrounding that board is. They all have a purpose, basically. Their purpose was to teach the next generation how things are built. So when we're back out in the world, I have enough of how you call it, like a general market knowledge, or not market knowledge, sorry, like media production knowledge about certain things. So when I'm watching a show, I can consciously know this is not real life, or like not get completely persuaded over time by that type of content, especially with social media nowadays and how things are crazy. If it weren't for that class, I wouldn't have this set of tools to emotionally deal with these things. So it's like they unintentionally taught us to be more emotionally intelligent when we encounter these kind of obstacles in the world.
Most definitely.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So with that in mind, the weirdest thing about CJEP is that especially Dawson, I don't know how it was in other CJEPs, Dawson was hella segregated.
Yeah, it was. Yes,
in
it
a
was.
very comedic way. Not like in a way that people hated each other, just in a way of like, really though? We really doing this? Like there was a whole side.
There's really a calf dedicated to the Jewish, and then one dedicated to the Italians, and then one dedicated to the rest of the folk? How you mean?
Exactly. And that's what the Conrads are. So just to put a bit of like context to what the Conrads are, it's literally where all the immigrants be.
Yeah. Straight up.
Yo, it was the craziest.
Straight up.
But there were the craziest parties, craziest events. It was in the Conrads. The most creative like things were happening in there.
I pulled a Van Wilder at Dawson. Like I milked a solid 5 years out of a social science degree. I had zero interest in the curriculum. But what was amazing about my time at Dawson was the connections that I made with people, because I'm from the East Side and I went to French high school. So when I went to Dawson, I was, because I have an Anglophone bend to me. So when I finally got a chance to go to school in English and not be beat over the head with Bill 101, then I got a chance to connect and build with these people who would then go on to do these amazing things in the creative space. And I just think that climate, I think it's a combination of the fact that it is CJEP and that it has it's a little more liberal than university.
It's a little more loose in terms of everything.
And the fact that it was Anglophone in Montreal, and coming from the East, it was such a refresher. And the time period, I think that if we go back to the last 20 years, last 15 years, that time was special, and the people who were imbued with the spirit of that time would go on to be the architects of the world in which we're in today.
Exactly. And I'm not surprised though, because the teachers who are there, man, they're serious, man. They see the potential in their students, and they really back you up like heavily. It's crazy. So I give my props to all of them too. So, but yeah, in terms of like different artists and stuff coming out of there, honestly, I don't know. Not in my year, not as much.
I remember Muggs having come out of Dawson.
No way, Muggs.
Miriam Sassy came out of Dawson.
That's crazy.
Yourself, myself, so plenty of other folks. I remember the rap battles because 20 years ago I was about to spit.
Oh, nobody was really rapping by that time.
Yeah, no, but the rap battles, they were serious. They were real spitters. One guy I really remember that like would show up and eat everyone's food was Shogun. Shogun was eating everyone's food back then.
Wow, I never. It's crazy. I guess that sort of dwindled down over time. Because by that point, it was just like beatbox competitions. Like nobody was rapping and
nobody
beatbox.
Was spitting.
Yeah. I beatbox. I can't rap, but so I beat the last beatbox guy.
I know you got a 116 in a tuck, pal si acaso. So the Lunice adventure as a DJ producer, where does it begin?
That started. Production started first, for sure. Okay. So that was when I was just about to get into Dawson, actually. Okay. During the summer before Dawson started. So I started around that time. But
so that's when you downloaded Fruity Loops.
Yeah. Okay. It was right when what was it? I failed French in high school, so I had to redo it in the summertime. So I went to adult school, finished that. So it was right that point when I started making music. And DJing came a bit later, by the time I was already in Dawson in college. And then I had my first gig and just kept going from there. And I did maybe a couple, like I did like a month's worth of shows at the same place at Zuizal with the same shows, club nights. And then eventually we realized the two club nights are very similar in terms of ideology, motivation, creativity. So we all decided to then start Turbo Crunk. And that's when it started, like 2009, I think, 9 or 10 or something like that. And that was great because that enabled us, well, especially the venue specifically, because when we moved to Coda, what was amazing was that the owner of it, Michael DeFreitas, he was able to find a way for us to book artists from the States that we love without them having a need for the work visa, right? And that's why the club itself is called the Social Club, right? He used the social clause to make it possible for us to bring him over because it's a social club. It's not an actual venue, technically. And so that enables us to get No Saj, Flying Lotus, basically everybody you can think of, from everybody on Lucky Me with Rusty, Hud, Mo, Mike Slot, Machine Drum, Laser Sword, all of that. Everybody we love. And oh man, I've had so many tears in those times, man. Like happy tears. Like, I can't believe I'm hearing this kind of sound. This is so otherworldly, like kind of cries. And yeah, that really shaped me for the kind of artist I became eventually. But what's interesting is I never took my career serious up until like a good 6 to 8 years in almost. And I've been in about 12 years now, but it took a very long time. But it's because of how popular culture pushes the idea of the dream, and like, oh, if you're trying to achieve something, you gotta go high. And if you're not aiming for anything high, you're not gonna be happy. Like, who said that? Who set up those rules? Like,
No, but
I was already happy when I was in grade 6. Like, well, what's the difference? What's the change?
That's exactly it. Like you broke it down so well earlier. Is that the idea of freeing yourself from the bar? Because people will in fact push you, be like, you got to push the bar higher. You got to push the bar. You got to push the envelope. It's like, no, you do. No, you don't. You don't need to do that.
Yeah. You don't need to, because it's really up to you and how you find your own happiness. But if you're choosing for something, for some it works, but I don't know, man. You got to sort of treat this like an athlete, man. You're playing a very volatile, highly inflammatory field. And I mean highly inflammatory, like how athletes have to perform at a high level so their bodies are getting inflamed. But instead of our bodies, it's our minds. And our minds, for us artists, are getting inflamed with the bloatedness of popular culture. And it's making us hot. And by that, to the point that we'll end up getting sore with our minds, right? And that's where a lot of folks in the music industry end up breaking mentally, and either they fall into some kind of escapism. Could be drugs, could be whatever else. And that's what opened my eyes to, like, oh, right, no wonder why a lot of folks sort of break under the pressure, because the industry in itself is very like I was saying, volatile. It's very happening, but in a very objective way. There's no ways around it. You either consistently feed the algorithm or you don't. But it's up to you. You decide. And I've decided I'm not. So I'm not going to be complaining if I'm not getting the numbers I'm looking for, because I'm not looking for those numbers. You know what I'm saying? So but it takes time, because the problem I've had with that, especially during COVID, because when the pandemic hit, a lot of people around me decided to double down on exposure. And I decided to backtrack to figure my own self, to re-update my purpose. Now that everything shifted, because I was very dependent on doing live shows to connect with people directly. Well, now that I can't right now, so what is this purpose of mine? And that takes time, man. You gotta be vulnerable with yourself, be very honest. And I would understand if that's a lot for folks to really look into themselves, to find their own errors, because it doesn't feel good. But once you go through that, you learn so much more. And that's what I chose to do for myself. But during that time, what I never really realized is that I never treated I never really treated mental health like a cold. So let's say somebody is just on the down and they're just generally sad or something. You know, maybe they lost money on Doge or some dumb shit.
You roll the dice and they came up snake eyes.
Yeah, exactly. But let's say somebody's down on something and you're trying to cheer them up, but they don't want none of that.
Yeah, they ain't trying to hear it.
So what do you think is going to happen? You're sort of going to be a little bummed out because they're bummed out. Like a cold. The person was so mentally sick, like a cold, he essentially passed it on to you.
It's contagious.
It's contagious. So with social media, with everybody doubling down on exposure, contained my mind. It contaminated. It contaminated my thoughts, and that's when imposter syndrome kicked in. You see what I mean? Yeah. But at the time, I didn't know I was compromised. It's a good way to say is to be mentally compromised. Because you would generally, when you catch a cold, you're compromised by the virus.
Right.
So I see it as being mentally compromised. So when I got compromised and didn't know it at the time, that's when imposter syndrome started to kick in. But then I started questioning, why would I have this kind of feeling? And the more I started looking deeper into it, the more I started discovering, oh man, I think everybody's projection, which is in no ill intent, everybody is trying to have the best outcome for themselves, which is very respectable. That's one thing I give across the board, that every human, if you're human, you naturally want to do good. But good is very subjective. Could be anything. And your good could be so bad to me. Right. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't take away from the fact that they, in their mind, are trying to do good. So as people in their mind are trying to do good, which in turn is more they're deteriorating their mental state, it's making the other people around them as sick as them or as compromised mentally. So then I get into a zone where I'm like, man, should I be really out there feeding this algorithm? But this is crazy because I'm not really trying to give all my fucking traffic to YouTube or to, a very specific tech platform, and because I sort of treat that like when Uber is saying, oh, we don't have employees, we're a tech company. That's messy.
It is very messy.
That whole thing is very messy. And I sort of see it in the same way. That's why a lot of content creators are always beefing with YouTube, because they keep changing the rules. But they have the right. That's literally their platform. They what do you want? That's why I'm not on it as often. So that kind of reality that people built themselves in this kind of echo chamber during the pandemic made me mentally compromised. And that's when I started questioning myself even more so. But as I started discovering or reminding myself of what I truly do and what I'm here for in terms of just building my own happiness, that's what sort of helped me inch out of that mental state. It's like taking a medicine, honestly. I took like mental exercises. That was my medicine. It could have been yoga, exercise, meditation, drink lots of water, whatever, like anything that's good feels.
Was there a panacea for you that like helped you get over that mental contagion? Like what was it that gave you the clarity of this is what's happening to me?
Yeah. Well, the thing that gave me the clarity over time is just mental practice. So mental practice could be generally being conscious of yourself going through these feelings, but never ever rejecting it or suppressing it. So if I'm feeling a type of way about myself, I let myself feel it. But I'm looking at it from a third person view nowadays. So nowadays, like the way I see myself is more as I see myself in different compartments now. Like I have my brain, I have all my other vital organs and everything. So now I'm like, okay, I want to do something. Now I set the command in my brain and I let my brain send the message throughout my body. So if I need to grab this mic, that's it. I'm looking at myself as like a third person view through like, oh, this is my vessel about to grab this mic. Because that way I don't end up building such an intense narrative around it if I become very technical with myself in that kind of way. Okay. Because we're so prone to building the most heaviest believable narrative for ourselves. And that's where the compromise comes from.
Well, we are the star of our own movies, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I basically took myself out of it.
And you're no longer the star of the movie. You're like the narrator.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like Morgan Freeman.
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah. I took myself out of the narrative and my identity. Like, I broke it all down. Well, nowadays is how I feel about myself.
Yeah.
I broke it all down. I'm just pretty much like, it doesn't matter because it's all subjective to me.
Yeah.
So now at this point, I just create music like how I always do it from the beginning, which makes me happy. And it doesn't go any further than that.
Yeah.
I don't start thinking like, is it going to be good at a show? Oh, is these people are going to feel this? It doesn't matter. Because if I make it in the way I feel like it makes me happy and then I present it to them, it's up to them to feel what they need to feel.
Yeah.
That's been my biggest thing, is respecting other people's emotion and never trying to control other people's emotion. You know, in the sense of like, you don't feel this beat, bruh? Yo, this is crazy. You don't understand. That's controlling emotion. I don't like that.
That's the ego.
Exactly. I don't have any of that. And if I start to have it because I'm mentally compromised, then I flush that down ASAP.
And you're capable of checking yourself.
100%. Yeah.
See, what I get from you, just from seeing you play, I get a sense of freedom. Like you're not afraid to express yourself and to have it manifest in the body and your movement, and a sense of hyper awareness, which is just a reflection of sensitivity. Like we're artists, so we're sensitive. We feel and we see and we touch and we smell and
exactly. And then I bring it to a bigger picture as we're human, therefore we can do all that. See, like. That's why I design a lot of things out of the different human senses. And that's why I bring a thurible on stage with the incense before the music starts. It's because I start with smell, because that's the most effective way to remember a moment, as opposed to just playing loud music all the time. Everybody else is playing loud music.
You actually had a collaboration with Jasmine Sarai on a limited edition room fragrance. So that leads me to the question, how important is the interplay of the senses in your creative practice?
It's the most important thing. Without it, then I'm not designing anything in particular. And it's not just music, it's presentation, it's performance, it's merchandise, it's anything that needs to be presented to the public
that evokes a feeling.
Yeah. If I don't think about any of the senses, then I'm not really designing anything in mind. You know what I mean? I'm not really thinking of anything in particular. So therefore, once it's out to the public, it doesn't feel like it's me. You know? It just feels like anything else, I guess, that might be popular at that time or whatever the heck it is. So if I can get like hearing in check, smell in check, like if I can get 2 out of the 5 popular senses, is it like feel, sight, touch, smell, taste, right? Yeah. So if I can get 2 out of the 5, that to me is a general good structure to upkeep. For again, an idea of like, okay, if I'm able to implement 2 out of the 3 designs in this, I might have something solid. Like it's because everything's so subjective. Yeah. I approach it almost like how scientists just do research. So once they do all the research and they have everything peer reviewed, they don't even conclude. They just go, this is our most likely answer in this moment in time. Subject to change in the future. So like that's sort of how I see my process as well. I work at it, I experiment with it, I explore my feelings and my intuition, my instincts within it, and then the result is the most accurate result I can have for myself in this moment in time. But it may change as I go and grow.
Yeah. Word up.
Yeah.
Going still on the interplay here, talk to us about the interplay between DJing and music production. Like, how does one inform the other and vice versa?
Oh, yeah, it's interesting, actually. That doing shows in production, for me, plays a pretty tight role together. Because being that I used to breakdance and also did theater, but I also did shows where I would do a full choreography mixed with theater. It gave me already a background of how to, or especially with editing, dude. Video editing is a huge thing because it's all about timing with the soundtrack or what's happening in the scene. And because I have a background on video editing, I'm able to pull out elements that are needed for people to catch people's attention over time. Okay. So when it comes to me working with dancers like Pax, for example, and it's easy for me because I do what they do. So there's a chance I might know what they're looking for exactly, not sonically, just in terms of the feel. And it tends to happen a lot when I work with different like companies and I send the track over for the video editor to do something. And he always hits me back like, this is the most fun editing I've had in a long time. And it's because I give the elements for them to have fun with. I'm all about playfulness. It's a big part of my design. And without playfulness, you can have sadness and playfulness. You know, you can make sadness and present it in a more playful manner. You can do it all within that sphere. And that's sort of what helped me produce how do I explain that? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought on that one. Sometimes I go off on like an idea. What was you talking previously?
We were talking about the interplay between DJing and music
production.
Oh,
right. So
you go off
like,
the field.
because you're saying, right. So what I was getting at was about the interplay. The word itself, interplay, it still attaches to the idea of playfulness. So yes. I create this playful dynamic between how I make music and how it presents itself on stage. So as I'm making the music, I'm thinking about the lighting design. I'm thinking about at what point am I going to be on stage for this? I'll just put this because this will be a perfect moment for me to do that. That kind of stuff. So it's always thought out. It's never just I'm beat making for that day. Sometimes I don't make beats for like months. And for the most part, I forget that I make music. Then I'll open a session. I'll be like, oh yeah, I made that. I forgot about this. And then I'll continue with a whole new perspective. And it becomes like a really very, very different kind of outcome. And I love that.
Yeah. Speaking of sessions, let's go ahead and get into your session. What did you prepare for us today?
So I have something. I've been working on my next album, so I'll play you something off of that.
Okay. Yeah. We're gonna get into the album and the line of questioning.
Yeah.
So do you have any secret weapons? Any like FL Studio pro tips that you want to share with the folks? Present your session. What do we have?
Yeah. Here? So this track is called "Make Face," and this will be coming out on the next album project that I'm doing.
Does it have a title? Does the album have a title yet?
Yeah. What I often do, I like to sit on a title or a word for like a couple years. Like any idea I come up with, I like to sit on it just to see if it lives with me for a while. If it can, then yeah, there's potential there.
Okay.
So I titled this project "Open." That's it, just open. And the idea came from because it's such a simple, straightforward word. And I don't know if anybody's really trying to focus on the idea of it because when I Google it for other projects with the word open, it tends to be like we were talking about previously, how we're very prone to creating a narrative. So a lot of people's album titles would be Open Door, Open Road. So it's like, that's a pretty specific narrative, isn't it? But if it's just open, that to me, because I'm so huge on letting people feel what they want to feel. So when I perform, I'm not reading no crowd. So if they don't like it, because I played crowds where everybody didn't like what I did. And it's crushing, sure, but I'm going to push through just to show you something different so you can finally feel something different, even if it's a bad feeling. Because we're human, so it's a shame if we were to just only express one side of ourselves. We're so complex and we've got a whole nuance of feelings, so we might as well practice all of it. Because if we suppress the sad feels or the confusion, then what happens when you hit a point in your life where it's really confusing?
Yeah.
They're not going to like that.
No, because then you're emotionally stunted because
exactly.
you only ever did the things that made you feel good.
Yeah, you that fed your own confirmation bias over time, So I'm more than happy to be that guy, the artist that comes in to show them something completely different and make them go like, what the hell is going on with this guy? Why is the guy so happy on stage? This music doesn't make any sense. And I've learned to appreciate that over time, only because when I've approached one of those type of people online about it and said, somebody was like, man, I don't know what the hell you're playing, it's super whack. And I replied with, oh man, I'm sorry that the experience wasn't to what you were expecting. I'll keep note of what you said, and hopefully the next time around, maybe it'll work out. But thanks for your time, because, I appreciate it. Time's valuable. 360, 180.
That is a masterclass in curving a hater right there.
Yeah, it's just customer service.
Straight up.
If you worked in retail, you know about customer service. Right? So it's like, but it's his own reality. Who am I to say otherwise? If that person says it's whack, I'm not going to say it's not.
Right.
That's good. you're feeling something, man. You're finally getting to criticize and compare and be critical about your thoughts. And if that is what happened to people when I'm doing my work, then that makes me just as happy as getting a whole crowd jumping up and down. You know what I mean? And like I was saying, the 180 switch, the reply after that was, oh man, your performance was amazing. You have so much energy. You're super positive. It's just the style of music. It's not my style. Oh, perfect, dude. That's so reasonable. Hell yeah. Of course. If I didn't like my music, I'd be the same as you. Like, it's totally fine. That's fine. And then when I realized it was really that they're most likely just projecting, I don't know where they're coming from. They could be coming from something back home or something bad happened to them. And so they need to let that load off, that load of stress off. And that's why a lot of folks exercise, because you let that load off from physical activity, or yoga from the breathing and the stretching. But if you don't do either of these things, well, you got to put that energy somewhere. And that's why I know, man, this is just me assuming stuff, but that's why I think people are online and they're very loud and they're talking a lot because they have so much energy in them. It needs to be put on something. If it's not their significant other, then it's going to be on the internet. Yeah. You know, that's why I'm not on the internet much, because I'm very grateful that I have my fiance, that we can get to really, really delve in and talk about the details of life and everything like that, and check in about ourselves within all this. Almost like a therapy session. And so I'm lucky for that I get to do that. But I feel for the people who are online putting their whole lives on it, all the drama. And their excuse is, look, I'm being vulnerable by showing you everything about me. And it's like, nah, that's not
how that works.
It's not how that works, really. But I feel you, because right now it's a tough time. You know? I can feel people, but it doesn't mean that I can empathize in that way. There's a certain limit where it comes to it, because it's like maybe they don't have anybody around them at that time to let that, because all they need is to let that energy out. That's all. Once it's out, they feel good, you know. So when I see a lot of discussions, like inflamed discussions is the best way to say it, online, the only thing I can think of is like, damn, these people they need someone in their lives to listen, because listening is the hardest. To me, the hardest skill set. Now I'm still working on that and getting better, but that's like my biggest thing, is learning how to listen. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and listen to this exclusive that you got for us.
Yeah. So, like you were saying previously, FL Studio Tricks, huh? Yeah. Okay. This is what's interesting. So we're about to look at a session. And like I was saying previously, I forget most of the time what I make. So this is going to be like a discovery thing for me as much as it for everyone.
All right. Well, let's
see
what you did
this go
around.
This is what I love. Because then I never stopped for a moment to really think, like, how do I make this? So it's going to be fun for me too. It's a learning. That's why I'm doing this too, is to learn from my own work. All right, let's see here. So tricks. I mean, before I even get into that, I guess, like, I don't have like specific tricks of like what plugins to use, because honestly, if we come back to the idea of subjectivity, really doesn't matter, you know.
There are plenty of tools that do the same thing.
Exactly. So it really comes down to, what are you comfortable with?
Oh, but somebody somewhere is looking at you the same way that you looked at Ninth Wonder, and they're like, I want to make beats how Lunice makes beats. So if Lunice uses RC20 all over his joints, then he's going to go and download RC20.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, so I mean, you want to play this real quick?
Yeah, run it one time.
All right, let's do it. You really want to hit. Yeah, exactly. You want to hit that part, and so it feels like whoa, and everybody just really notices the section or whatever it may be. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, I know what you mean though by the kind of feeling of power in it. I guess like from my perspective, I would see it as it's very engaging, theatrical. Not that it's theater music, but more like you feel like it's a show, a scene almost. And like I was saying, like parts like stuff like that. These are like editing moments, you know. Like if a video editor works with this track, they'll be like, "Well, I'm having so much fun," and or like when I'm on stage, it'll go. I'll think about the lights, and I'll tell the lighting director, "Okay, maybe use one of the Sharpies or two of the Sharpies to go like flash sweep or whatever it could be." So it's one of those things that make the whole process super fun. So it's not just beats. That's sort of, I guess that's one of my biggest tricks for like when I'm working on music is thinking of things in general. If like the individual isn't planning to do shows, I guess it changes the dynamic a little bit. But it doesn't change the dynamic if they're just trying to do it for their own happiness, if they're trying to do it for what makes them feel good about it, kind of thing. Not for what's going to make them the next hype. Yeah. Because the hype is just marketing, bro. The hype is just... Because once you start seeing everything as an ad delivery service, then what's the point of the hype? There's no hype. Hype died back in the hip-hop in the 80s. Like, you know, like anything that's hype now is for the market.
Everything is just an ad delivery service.
It is. Once I've seen, that's how I see everything now. I mean, all the influencers, look, no disrespect to influencers. They're trying to make a living. I get that. But to just call yourself an influencer is not enough for me. You got to call yourself an ad delivery service.
If you're going to be honest about it.
You got to be honest. Oh, yeah, then make it like Goldberg Kreischer. You know what I'm saying? And be a real ad delivery service and really know how to deliver ads.
I think it's such an important message, the idea of, hey, forget about it. Because the more people make this their living, the more serious they take it. And the more serious they take it, the less fun it becomes. And the less fun it is, the quicker it dies.
That's exactly it. And that's why I always find my stuff very fun, even if I listen to old music, all my old beats, and I'd be like, it's still good, and I'm still playing them out, and nobody feels tired of it. Everybody loves it. Even to this day, the amount of people I have asking me to play Hitman's Anthem, and what's funny is that I've never played it, just so happens. It's because I just got distracted, and by the time I made new music, I was playing that up. But little did I know, I stopped playing Hitman's Anthem for like years, like 7 years or something. It wasn't on purpose, but the listeners, they're the ones who re-inspired the idea of, oh yeah, you should totally play that because it's all I want to hear right now. It's like the craziest thing. I'm like,
do you have the Hitman's Anthem session?
Oof, session? No, that's old laptop.
That's big old. Okay.
I'm at a point now with life where if I lose it, I lose it. It's all good.
Okay. That happens.
Yeah. Like, because it's such a part of life nowadays with data and the chance of just losing it that I'm not going to stress myself anymore. If I were to lose this album, it's fine.
Okay. Well, yeah, because then you could just make another one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's what's beautiful about it. Yeah, actually, well, we haven't talked much about the process. Well, here's the fascinating part, man. It's like,
but you broke it down like it's that your process is that you have no process. Your process is that this is all for the love of the game, and like you're not really thinking about it. You're just working off of the thing that makes you that brings fun.
Well, that's it. So like, if I were to be more technical, I can't be. But if I were to really be, honestly, I'll just.
Is there like a track or like a session that has like a demonstration of like a technique that you use in your sound design?
That's what's weird, man. It's like all I can really show is the VST I use. Oh, actually, I would definitely recommend SSL. That's a beautiful one. It really gets like good. You can really get like interesting levels out of different sounds. I use it for almost any layer. I can use it for drums, vocals, synthesizers, anything, because then you can work on the high frequencies, high mid frequencies, low mid, and low. It's really fascinating. No way for me to explain it, but it's just the feeling of it and hearing. It tends to take the detail up, not just the overall sound, but just like the littlest parts that you could never ever hear on its own. So that in combination with Infected Mushroom, I use a lot. This one is more of like the overall push. Like it literally says push down there. But what's cool is that you can make it a limiter. But for the most part, I like to push it because I like to distort certain aspects of a sound.
Can you show it in action?
Yeah. Let me see here. So let me get that drums in here. Drums. So this is what the beautiful part is. Half of the time, I'm always lost on the mixing board because I'm like, where the hell my drums at? So I don't label anything. I'm too preoccupied with just getting the expression and just save the file. I'll figure it out later. This is the drums right here. Cool. So it's a lot softer. If I want to keep pushing it.
So now it's overdriving the drums.
Yeah. Okay. And I like to overdrive things, but then just to see what ends up showing up once it's higher level, and then backtracking it to see like if I can keep maybe a certain sound aspect high and keep the general other things low. It's very hard to explain, but it's honestly the best way I could see it is
you want the good dirt.
Yeah.
There's bad dirt.
Yeah,
and then there's some dirt that's cool, that gives it
Exactly.
shade, that gives it texture.
Yeah, because the general way I've always approached my music is similar to, well, I've always done it before, but when I've encountered this artist in Miami, he's a painter, and he taught me something so insightful, I found, for art. And what we did is that we sat across each other on a table, and he said to look at me and try to draw every single little detail of my face onto paper without looking at the paper once. And so I did that, and when I looked at it, I was pretty surprised because it looked like something like a Basquiat piece, basically.
Okay.
And he said that this is how artists paint and draw. They don't think about the line or where it's going to go next. They just see the vision and just draw it as they see it fit. And they don't care where the line's going to end up. They just put it in. And when they look at the piece of paper, that's their most rawest artistic expression that they can ever express, because they had no bias in between that time. Because whenever you draw, I used to draw a lot back in the day too, and I'll do a line, I'll be like, oh no, I don't know if it's the right one, I'll just erase that. And let's do another one. Oh, I don't know, the angle on this and that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's taking all that out. And he's saying, just look, draw, and then look at it after. And that's how I started doing with my music. I just sort of zone out. I don't know half the time when I'm doing it. And then when it's done, or when the structure is shown, and I take a step back, I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Then I start adding things on top. It's as if somebody else made the beat, and then I'm coming in and I'm adding something else. But then I stop making the beat, and I forget about it purposely. And then I come back, and I'm like, oh, I forgot I made this. Now I have a whole new take on it because I went through life, you know? And then I put totally different ideas I would have never put.
That is one of the most underrated aspects of the creative process. I took a class in Concordia in night school on the creative process.
Oh, really?
And our assignment was to analyze an author. So I analyzed a Guatemalan author named Miguel Ángel Asturias, and his creative process was that he would wake up every morning at 4 o'clock and he would write 5 hours a day, from 4 to 9 every day for a month. He'd take the manuscript and put it in a drawer and leave it there for 3 months. He would only revisit it 3 months later, and then he would apply a reductionist process to the editing. And so that's what that reminds me of. It's exactly that. It's just you let it sit, and then you revisit it with fresh ears, new ideas, and the thing that you started becomes something else altogether.
Absolutely, because I'm taking advantage of my human senses and the ability of information that I can uphold or keep in my brain. Because I know I'm going to forget things after I finish this beat. So let's take that into advantage and use my limited capacity to hold info into play and see where that goes. And it came up like that, where the whole, my first album was very, very focused, but this second album was very instinctual. Very, I didn't even know I was making an album. All I knew is that I had have a title that I like to sit on and live with and conceptualize with. And the music was being made in between, but I didn't think much about it. Until I put them all together, sent it to the label, and they're like, damn, this is like 2 albums worth. I'm like, word, okay. Start with the first then. And it became the most like seamless, non-stressful album process I've ever felt. I mean, only my second album, but it was so like, it felt so good. Just liberating is the best way to say it. I sort of liberated myself from the constraints of procrastination, writer's block, especially that.
Open is such a good title because as a philosophy, the idea of things being open, you're open for business, you're open-minded.
Yes.
You were,
especially with these times, because I came up with the name like 3 years before COVID. You know what I mean? And it still applies heavily in these times. It's
when
really
everything is closed, the only thing that you want is for everything to be open again.
Yeah.
So break down the session here. I see a lot of tracks. I see a lot of cuts.
Yeah.
Walk us through it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So a lot of times I like to create certain sections and then exporting it into a WAV file. That's generally memory issues. But
to
also,
avoid CPU overload.
yeah,
I hear that.
Exactly. So that's yeah.
How's that for a pro tip? If you're working on a setup that has low CPU resistance, bounce a track before you keep working on it instead of having it chop up on you in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the layout here is sort of, I don't have any kind of like way of organizing it as some artists do. Some artists are like Monte Booker. He's so organized and amazing at it. I sort of just lay it out like a painting is just happening, and I just keep adding as I go. But it's more comes down to the mixing, the kind of plugins I often use that are constantly open are, well, classic Fruity EQ2 is always open. Sound Goodizer, man, that one, it's a classic, bro. Like, sometimes you gotta say fuck it and be like, you know what, man, it sounds good, son. Like, that's what I love about my shit, is because I love it when people call me out for using basic synths.
Yeah.
But I have no fear, bro. If it sounds good, it's good, bro. It's in.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's like I'm happy you pointed that out, because now listen to it. Like, it sounds fine to me.
Now look at you. You spent all that money on your Arturia suite, and I'm using the stock joint.
Exactly.
What does that say about you? What does that say about me, huh?
Exactly that, man. There was this other plugin, though, I was using a lot, but they don't have it on Mac. It's only on PC. It's called Sonic Destructor. But it's a really good plugin to get things distorted without it really sounding like it's lost. But now that I'm on the Mac, I don't have that anymore. But I replaced it with what's this? Infected Mushroom Pusher. And this is a really good one, man. I would recommend people to get into this. If they're trying to like get the extra levels out of any kind of layer. I pretty much opened that for everything. Pretty sure. No, I didn't do it on the snare. Let me see here. Oh, I used to use so much reverbs back in the day. You'll probably notice in my old work I use a lot of reverbs. But that's to me, it's purely because being not a musical person, like being just the general creative, getting into music. So I'm very much like very new when I'm exposed to sound. So I was just basically being like a musical tourist is the best way to explain it.
Okay.
I was like, oh, reverb, woohoo! And that's what I did for like the last few records. And now I'm at a point where I was like, okay, I've been in music for like a decade. Well, I've learned a few things now. Like, let's try these new ideas out. And one of those ideas is cutting all of my reverbs out for the most part and keeping things super dry and tight. There'll be some effects, but it's very minimal. If I'm changing anything, it's the EQ on things. But I like to keep things tight. Like, for example, with the drums, they sort of go, I like to chop the end part of a drum sometimes. So instead of it going like, boom, it'll go like, boom. And it just sounds funny, and it's like a little, you don't often hear things like that.
The musical term for that would be staccato.
That's it?
You want your drums
Hell yeah, bro.
Okay.
Staccato, that's it.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's really good. Thanks for letting me know.
Huh.
Yeah, musical terms,
I'm not gonna front like I know music theory.
Yeah, I don't know chords. I don't know musical terms. like I said, I'm not even a music guy. That's what's so funny. But I have a lot of expression and I have a lot of purpose.
You may be the most musical, non-music guy I've ever encountered.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what passion gives you, I guess.
That is the byproduct of passion. True indeed.
Yeah, byproduct. That's a key word to me. I focus on what I like, and the byproduct of people being interested in it is just the second, how you call that? It's like the side effect.
Yeah.
The side effect. My success in this music industry is, to me, I treat it as the side effect to who I am.
To your pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I'm only pursuing happiness here. That's all I'm doing. And being able to work with like Kanye or being to work with Lil Wayne or stuff like that was just a side effect to me. It wasn't.
How was the Kanye experience? I heard that you brought him the Nina Simone sample for Blood on the Leaves.
Oh,
Is that
no,
the case?
no.
It was just that he sampled the Tonight record? Break it down.
No, so this is what's so to break it down, which is very surprising. Probably the most surprising thing out of this is because me and Hudmo made the beat, which turned out to be our first ever instrumental we made together.
What was it called again?
Are You Ready? Okay. And Blood on the Leaves, which ended up being. So at the time it was just called Are You Ready? And that was the first ever song we made together. And when Hudmo used to live in London and all that, but he's Scottish though, just to clear that up. Okay. you know, it's a big difference. You know, shout out to my Scottish folks up there. You know what I'm saying? And we made that beat, and Virgil caught wind of it when we started playing it out somewhere, and he ended up showing that to Kanye, and then Kanye went just absolutely wild for it, from what I was hearing, so much that he would just play the instrumental nonstop, just because he was obsessed with it, and to the point that the whole story of him being kicked out in that hotel when he was working on Yeezus or something like that, and in Paris when he got kicked out. It was because he was playing that nonstop, super loud. Apparently, that's what they told me.
Okay.
And so, what's very typical of collaborating with him is that you send the music and it gets deconstructed and then reconstructed, right? That seems to be what happens often. But for some reason, he didn't touch it. Nothing was touched. The drums I added, the melody I added. Like I did the melody, and then Hudmo changed it to the horns. And then I added the drums, then Hudmo changed the drum kits to make it way bigger. And then none of that was changed, dude. The only thing that changed was he added the Nina Simone sample, and Mike Dean mixed it.
So
Like
he's the one who put...
Maybe Mike Dean might have arranged it, but the beat did not change. But what's even more fascinating is that before Yeezus, he used the song for his first ever fashion show.
For Yeezy Season 1?
Yeah, his first ever first. So if you backtrack to his first ever fashion show, the biggest song in there is that one, just the instrumental, because he just got it, and he was just like, "This is great. I'm gonna use it for a fashion show." So I was touring at the time, and then when I got the news of that, and I checked the clip, I was like, "Oh, damn, he really does have that track." And I was like, "Oh, cool, okay, we'll see where that goes," because you can't expect it to place, but I guess he really liked it. He wanted to put it as the first record on the Yeezus album. And then Rick Rubin was like, nah, it's got to be the middle piece. And I was like, oh, I mean, both are great. I appreciate it. It's not like I was really trying to, because what's interesting is that I wasn't trying to absolutely work with him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm happy where I am. I'm already happy. Only thing I could express is gratefulness at this point, because I wasn't even trying to get you to hear me. It's just, we just ended up, because the music sounded like a way he really wanted to hear in that time and moment. And so the fashion show happened, and then we just thought he was going to deconstruct the whole thing. And by the time the final thing came out, it was just a Nina Simone and pianos. There was some piano keys playing in the back, actually, that was added. I believe that might have been Hudmo that did that part. He added that part. And that's about it, man. When that came out, I was like, I can't believe it was completely untouched. Just two things, a piano line and Nina Simone. That's about all that was added.
Crazy.
I know. And he asked me when I was doing a session with him, because here's the crazy part. And a lot of folks were like, oh, why did you not do that? And that kind of stuff. And that's what, it's the part where people go, why didn't you not do that? that mental state of mind is what also and eventually compromised me over time. Because there was a point where I was working in a session with him. I think it was for Cruel Summer, and he flew me in just to like hear ideas and see where I'm at with music. And I'm like, really? You don't like? Okay, yeah. If you just want to hear stuff, I'll play my album. I'm working on an album. And he's like, cool, yeah, play me that. And I played him the CCCLX one, 360. So I played him the track called The Doors. And when he heard it and the bass came in, he just went like, pushed the table back, and he's like, whoa, yeah, that one's dope. Give me that. And I was like, but it's on my album. You know?
Man's just poaching. He's he's poaching the heat. Okay.
So I was like, but I just said I'm showing you stuff from my album. You know, like, and then even before leaving, he was like, wait, show me that track again. And I'm like, all right. I show it again. He's like, yeah, that's the one. Send it to me. And I just didn't send it because the thing is, he already has been on the leaves.
Yeah.
I'm such a content individual. I don't need that hype. You know what I'm saying?
You don't need the placement. You don't need the look.
No.
You don't need the
I appreciate it enough that he already worked on Blend the Leaves.
Yeah.
I don't need to go out of my way to give you this. I'm so focused on my album right now. Because without this song, I feel like it wouldn't be complete for who I am. That's why it took me 5 years to work on my first album. It wasn't because it was hard or I really wanted to make it amazing. No, it was literally a self-discovery process. So when my album's out, I know exactly what I'm trying to talk about and exactly to try to explain who I am. Or to put it in short, know exactly my purpose in this field. Because if I don't know my purpose in the field of music or entertainment, that's perfect ways for corporate companies to exploit me, take advantage of me while I'm lost. But if I know who I am and where I want to go, they can offer me $5 million. I might not just take it because it's like you're implying that you want $10 million back from me. You know what? Keep your millions. I'm fine.
I won't fall for the okie doke.
Nah, son. And even then, why do I want that much money, bruh? Like, come on, man. I'm done with that.
I could give you a couple of reasons why, but most definitely.
Like I was already happy when I was broke. So I'm only just grateful for any of the shows I get, even if it's for $50. I was already grateful when venues around Montreal were paying my taxi. I was like, bro, I got to get there for free and go back home for free and turn up. That shit crazy. I was already hype on that. So it's like these corporates cannot influence me with outrageous amounts of cash.
They can't pay you out.
No. Unless I have to see that my business model can make that, can double what they offer me. If I can see my business model can do that, then I'll take it. But if I don't see it, I'm very realistic with myself. Because the kind of music I make is not for commercial consumption in that kind of way. It's like I don't speak the language of popular culture or like of pop music or pop rap music in that kind of respect. So because the money is in that. And why is it in that? Well, again, if we come back to the idea of ad delivery services, it's really just that. So it can be placed in commercials, so it can be placed with the highest artists, can then be placed in movies, can then be placed. So it's like, of course you're going to make the money. That's where all the money is at, is advertising. That's why Google making money, advertising, Facebook, advertising, Twitter, advertising, all of them. But that's the name of the game. Why wouldn't it be the same for music? So that's not my approach. However, if the circumstance and the times change and we end up in an era where they promote the kind of expression I do, and the public, the consumers, are heavily bought in to that feeling, the genuine feeling of happiness and all that stuff, and that actually sells, then my bracket may change. You know what I mean? Because I can then realistically scale it within the era we're in at that moment. But right now, we're more in an era of social media, feed the algorithm as much as you can. Therefore, it unintentionally makes a lot of people become narcissistic. It's not their fault. It's more just the circumstance of it all. It's making them that because they think they need to be online all the time, which they technically do. But but it's up to them. Do you want those numbers or do you not? And most people be like, I do, but it's gonna come with a lot of.
It's gonna cost you.
Exactly, it's gonna cost you. Well, actually, costing is a big part for me because I like to use the idea of an entropy tax, meaning the amount of the amount of energy you put in, whether it's like active energy, mental energy, anything that's really like hot that you're putting in, you're gonna have to pay that back in entropy tax. Entropy tax meaning like you're gonna have to pay that back in your mental health. You're gonna have to pay that back in your actual life. Some people pass away because they went overboard with such and such. You know what I mean? Yeah. You go overboard with drugs, you're gonna have to pay the entropy tax. You see what I'm saying? Like I see it like that in exchange. That's why when you ask me about happiness, the only thing I can say is balance. I pay and I keep some for myself.
I like that concept of balance because even in your music career, for all of your non-commercial intentions and purposes, you were and you know just making decidedly anti-pop music. You also went and toured with Madonna. Fuck around, strike that balance.
I know. That's what's so beautiful, man. I appreciate you, Madonna, man. Shout out, man.
How was the Madonna experience? Tell us about
that.
Dude,
the best, man.
How did that connection even happen in the first place?
I don't even know. I gotta ask Madonna, honestly, man. Like,
I bet it was her son. I know that her son pays attention to Montreal.
Yeah. Definitely. Her son definitely is into all that. Well, she did tell me it was her son and daughter. They suggested me, and when she was like in a dressing rehearsal or something, and they showed my performance, and they were like, "Yo, you should have Lunice open for you." And she was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, he's got high energy. It's gonna be interesting." And I remember when she sent the offer, it was just one show, Vancouver, right? Okay. And I was like, "But you know what I play, right?" Like I asked the team that, you know, does she know what I play? And then her team replied to me, "Oh, Madonna said yes, so play the fuck you want." I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna play some weird shit. Your crowd ain't gonna like it, but she's gonna like it. So let's go. She's letting me do me. Okay, let's go. And what was so crazy is that she let me use her stage across and her lighting. So I got my tour manager to get her lighting director to rig up all the lights prior. So then my tour manager can use the board and then change the light on the fly as I'm playing. So I got to use all of her stadium lights as I was performing. As an opener, bro. Normally an opener just has a spotlight and that's it.
Barely. Lucky if you even get that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I do my thing with the thurlable, all that shit. Everybody in the stadium, like, what the fuck going on with this kid? And then I start doing my show. And I was just so happy with what I was doing and grateful for the position I'm in. The crowd wasn't feeling it, obviously, because it's so fucking, what the hell is this kid doing?
It's big left field.
Yeah, big left field. That's the best way to say it. Yeah. So eventually, one of her main dancers came up to me and he was like, "Yo, do you mind if we come up on stage and dance with you?"
Do you mind?
I'm like, "Bro, let's go." And he's like, "Okay, because this is so hype." I'm like, "Okay." And so all her dancers started coming up on stage, started dancing with me. And they started going through the walkway and shit. And I was like, wow, I got her dancers hyping me up now?
That's nuts.
Dude, like almost every show, they would come out and dance with me.
If that isn't validation of like your whole career up to this point.
Dude, that's what's so crazy. The confliction of it all, right? It's super confusing because then I'll do that. I'll finish my set. And that was only supposed to be the first show in Vancouver. And I get out, go to my green room. And her manager comes up and says, by the way, Madonna wants you to meet her in the green room. They're going to do like a prayer and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, all right. I thought we were going to like pray. But what it turned out to be is that when you get in the room, she has like two separate rooms. She has her green room and she has like the general lobby green room for everybody, visitors and staff. And so we're in that lobby green room. And what we're doing basically, well, before we even get to the prayer, I get there, we all stand in a circle. And then eventually she opens her door. She comes out. First fucking thing she says, and like this, "Where's Lunice?" She calls me the French Lunice. "Lunice, where's Lunice?" I'm like, oh, hell no, she calling me. No, hell no. I just hit. I was like, what are you doing calling me?
You don't just Francisize my name.
I'm like, nah, she ain't calling me. I'm just going to hide a little bit. And she kept looking, and everybody started looking around, like trying to find me. And they're like, oh, he's right there. And it's like, oh, she's like coming right at me. Oh my gosh, she hugs me. And it looks me in the eye. She's like, I've never seen something like that. And that hit me. I was like, huh? And I told her, are you sure? I was like, are you sure? Because you've seen a lot. She's like, yeah, no, I know, but no, nothing like this. I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. And then she was like, no, this is very different. You know what? Who's opening on my next show? Nah, kick him out. I don't know who it was, but kick him out. Everybody, I know, sorry, fam. And everybody was like, oh. And she's like, you know what? Lou's coming with me for the rest of the tour. Wow. I'm like, huh? Okay. And so, well, I already had my tour, so we had to take the dates in between when I'm back home type thing. And dude, she's the biggest supporter of my creative expression, is the best way to say it. To the point that even post-tour, she would invite me to her Thanksgiving dinner. And then like in Barcelona. And then we go there and I'm like, this is pretty surreal. Why am I in this very intimate setting here? Like I'm her homie or something. And then after that night, it's like, do you want to play some music? I'm like, sure, I'll play some stuff. And I'll play like old Memphis tapes. And one of her dancers, turns out he's the one of the like the founders of Djing.
Wow.
So when he heard that, he was like, yo, you playing that 3-6 baby, yo, let's go. And I'm like, oh shit, yo. And then she was enjoying it. Look, this is how nice she is. She literally just sat in front of me while I was playing my set and did not move for like an hour overtime. And I kept going because I was like, well, I'm gonna stop playing when she leaves. But she was waiting for me to finish because she felt disrespectful to leave while I was playing. It's like, and so we had a laugh. I was like, she came up to me, she's like, okay, Lou, I'm gonna head out now. I'm gonna go rest up. I'm like, okay, great. And this guy, I was just waiting for you to finish. I was like, oh, I was waiting for you to leave. So we just laugh on that one, man. Like, but backtracking to the prayer. So we get in a circle. When she comes out after all that talk, we all hold hands, and we don't pray. She literally just reminds us about how little we are in this whole world. We're this little grain of sand, and how grateful we should be to be in this position to bring people their own happiness or their own feelings in this field of performance arts and that kind of stuff. Every night was about that, and she would ask someone in the field in the circle to give a speech about that. What they've learned over time and everything. Everybody's A1, the whole team A1, because they've done multiple world tours with her. She really knows who to work with. I've never seen such a team so tightly knit together. And my last show with her, she let me do a speech. And I did how we talking now. I do my whole thing, and I just break it all down, and I just break down everybody's skill sets that inspire me and from every field. And she was about to come up to me to give me a hug and I guess talk about the speech. But as she was coming up, it's just so crazy that world of artists. Because I don't pay attention to who's who in the room. Because at one point it was Khaled. Well, when I did the speech, Khaled was in the room too. And so I was about to go hug Madonna, and then this woman interjects in between us.
Wow.
But she has shades on, right? Not shades, she has glasses on.
Okay.
So I can't recognize her because she's literally this close to my face. And she's like, oh my God, it's an amazing speech you done. Oh, I felt it. I'm like, cool, thanks. And then sort of had an awkward silence. And then I realized, oh shit, it's Ariana Grande. And I've always heard stories of give her space, And I'm like, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just keep my hands right here and just be like, I'm not gonna hug or anything. Thank you, thanks. Not even a handshake or just thank you. And then eventually, oh my God, what's up? That world is madness, dude. I've had a lot of interesting stories of those times. I've had those are people who like. There's always people who hate. And the most interesting one was Naomi Campbell.
Naomi Campbell was hating on the God? Let me find out.
Dude, man, I don't blame her, man. Because the thing is...
How, Sway? I don't understand.
Dude, I don't blame her, man, because, come on, I'm weird as shit, man.
Okay.
I'm not, because, I was playing...
It's not like Naomi Campbell is regular either.
Yeah, but think about it. That whole scene loves... I call it conservative rap music.
Okay.
It's not really trying to be out there, but it's catchy enough to please everybody.
Right.
So that's what most people want to hear when they're at a party setting. And it's not my show. It's literally just Madonna getting me for another after party kind of thing with her friends. And then her friends turned out to be that group. And so as I'm playing my set and everybody's enjoying their time, Naomi hops up on the stage and leans on me heavy. And she's like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, I'll just play my set.
She's just minding my business, Naomi Campbell.
She's like, you got any Biggie? I'm like, sorry, I don't got no Biggie on this laptop. Because I'm not a DJ, bro. I just have my set, I just make music and I put it in. And she's like, oh, you don't have Biggie? You got Jay-Z? No, not this time around. What? Are you even a DJ? Wow. She threw out all the projections she could find. I say projections specifically because, like I said previously, I can't blame her because she's encountering something, and it's different, and it's not what she's not looking for this right now.
Right.
She's looking for a good drink with some friends and chilling and looking for an actual DJ that reads the crowd. But she's looking at an artist that does not read shit. So I get her feeling, But it was a wild moment because she was really hella aggro and trying to break my ego down. But again, customer service, right? So I keep my smile up. I'm like, oh, it's fine. Okay, cool. All right, no problem. You don't have this? No. Then why are you even a DJ? I could do it better than you. I'm like, oh, yeah, most likely, man. Most likely. It's true. It's true. It's true. You know what I'm saying? Like that's some Eddie Murphy shit. Like, oh, that's true. That's true.
Rocked her to sleep one time.
What do you want me to do? Like, feed that inflammation?
Start beefing with Naomi Campbell?
Hell
like,
no, man. I don't want to feed nobody.
Do
Yeah, I ain't feeding nobody's inflammation. Nah, son. So I just let her do her projection and let her project on me. And, out of all the people, I'm probably the best subject to take it. And, those are like one of those many moments where I've encountered folks who just don't, not that they don't believe in me or not that they don't like the stuff I do. It's just, honestly, they must have been going through some shit in their lives. So they found me as the perfect emotional punching bag for that moment in time. Honestly, it's the best way I can see it.
Well, speaking of projections, you recently entered the NFT space. So let me ask you this one as a futurist.
Yeah.
How do you envision the future of music? Can you see it? Like, what does it
Somewhat,
look like?
but it's not gonna. The future of music, it's gonna be iffy for me at least. Well, not for me in the way I'm trying to be. Because the reason why I say it's iffy is because people's perception of success tends to all be in the same style. High as fuck. Top mountaintop success. Huh? I could make a really good peanut butter jelly sandwich and that's as much a success to me. You know what I mean? So I think it comes down to the public's perception of success needs to be diversified for us to finally understand or for us to finally look for a better future. Because the reason why I say that is because I see music, it's going to be going through a decentralized world eventually, but not until I feel it goes through the venture capitalist world. Because what I'm seeing now is labels, especially independent labels, don't really have or don't want to push or put in that much money into a certain artist because a lot of times that artist can't double it back. But that capital needs to come from somewhere. And that's when the venture capitalist sort of comes in. And what I see as a future, which is not that bright, is that the VCs, the venture capitalists, are going to be the gatekeepers for anything that needs to be created.
Like art and culture related? You think
All
it's going to...
art, culture, business, anything that needs capital is going to have to go through them now. And they're going to end up owning a
So
lot
how
of-
do we counter that? How do we ensure the freedom and the
the
sovereignty
balance-
of the creator? Go ahead.
Right. So the balance may just be in the decentralized world, also Web 3.0. Being that an independent artist can just post anything, any content they want on a Web 3.0 platform and outright own it because it's automatically programmed into the smart contract in itself. So any image, content you post online is you own it. So if anybody takes it, a company takes it and sells it or puts it in an ad, the royalty is already baked into the contract. So you automatically get a split cent. Whereas in the real world with real financials, there's tons of middlemen. And it gets to a point, like if you get to a certain status, you have a lot of people to pay under you. Not under you, but in part of the team. And so you don't generally get that direct sense of like revenue making as you would maybe in the future with decentralization. But, it's a back and forth because you'll still have all of the institutions in the real world already setting up a position in the crypto world or NFT world more specifically. And that whole NFT market it's gone ham lately because of a thing called profile picture NFTs, which is essentially it's like collecting Pokemon cards, but what makes it better than Pokemon cards to me is it's a profile picture. So it plays into people's narcissistic expression. Not that they're narcissistic, not that they're a narcissist, but more just the business model behind NFT PFPs seem to play really well because people get to post it as a profile picture. Rather than like, go see my gallery and see what I own. No, this is my profile picture, and I got to own this very rare piece. And it's meant to be shown all the time publicly, that kind of thing. So I think that aspect of being able to publicly show what you got compared to just a gallery is what makes that a lot more successful. How's that going to apply with music? That's another thing. That's why I've experimented with my piece with using different layers and stems, but that's just being out in the open, because everything is pretty much out in the open. It's sort of the Wild West still. But as institutions from the real world start building more prominent positions in that field, you'll have a balance of decentralization and centralization. I mean, you have that already with platforms like Binance and Uniswap. Uniswap's more decentralized, Binance is more centralized. So it's going to come down to the consumer's need of a easier user interface or a more, it's not complex, but it's like just extra steps. But you know, it's the companies take advantage of people's low motivation to try extra steps.
Well, their dependence to convenience. Because
yes.
If the panning has taught us anything, is the fact that we are hooked on convenience. Have everything come to us. We don't want to go anywhere. We don't want to do anything. So we'll sign away our rights, our ownership to our work if it means that we get to benefit from a platform that already has an audience baked in that you can just siphon towards you. But you don't own that. That doesn't belong to you.
Exactly.
And you can't transfer that. You become platform dependent.
Exactly. Yeah, platform dependent, and that's something I don't want to be, because once you're platform dependent, doesn't mean you're working for that company at all, dude. They own your shit, but they're not working for them. That's so messy. It's a messy idea. It's a messy dynamic. It's way more messy than major labels.
So you got a new album on the way in the works called Open. What else is next for Lunice?
So honestly, because I have a lot of material, and so I'll be working on already. I'll already start thinking about my next album project, but it depends. There's no like specific end goal, like how I'm setting up a goal, but more just I'm setting up possible ideas to explore. And what I'm exploring now is my next maybe EP or album project. But in between that, I'm working on the next Tonight EP, and then this October I'm re-releasing my 3 old records, Stacker Upper, 100 and 180.
Okay.
And because listening it sort of makes sense in terms of like reintroducing it to Generation Z. I like to keep track of generations, actually. Yeah. It sort of helps me see the scope of culture and how things are moving. And a lot of Generation Z, man, they're really on it. They're so creative, and a lot of them, especially the younger generation of Z who are in their 20s at the moment, like 20, 21 at most, they're very against social media. And you'll see that in my album project. There's 2 artists from Montreal that I work with, and they're very much in that same mentality. They're only 20 and extremely creative, very playful. Nothing is serious to them. It's all just like, I mean, one of them I put out a single with Miko last year. Okay. And I mean, if you check his Instagram handle, it's called Miko versus the Internet. So that sort of says enough of, the kind of person
the
he
stance
is.
That they have as a generation.
Yeah. They're against it, but they'll create artful and thoughtful content. But they won't feed the algorithm. They won't let it happen where they have to keep posting and posting. But when they post, it's something worthy and interesting, and it's inspiring for me seeing that kind of stuff. So Generation Z, they're definitely on it, and I think things might shift more towards something better with them. But the situation for where you're gonna get capital if you reach a certain level and you're trying to get a music video done and stuff, because like for the most part, I don't have the money to make my own music videos. I get it from either like I present an idea and concept to Apple, and then if they see that it makes sense, then they'll put the money in. They don't make no money back on that video. This is purely for PR in terms of like association and who they support. You know, it's that kind of stuff. So I see it more as like, okay, you're investing money as like it's still an ad, but without the delivery part of it. You know what I mean? Because they're just funding my music video, which is not advertising them, but it's on their platform, kind of thing. They have exclusivity to play it for a certain amount of time, and then eventually, when the exclusivity is done, then I take it out and I put it on my channel. So like that's the only way I'm able to get funding for that kind of stuff. But the way I'm seeing things going is now everything is going to start going through a VC first before anything else. And that's just a bad look because, I mean, I don't want to get into that kind of stuff because I don't know. I'm not an expert in politics or anything. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like the financial industry has took over politics, but like a long time ago.
Yeah, it's always been the case.
Yeah. Like when there was a crash like in the late 70s or something like that, they cut some kind of deal, and for the most part, it created a new world where the financial institutions stabilized the culture, the way of living, and all that stuff. But with the stabilization of it, it created this numbness, which then created an individual being more highly persuadable to advertising. You know, so if you're like you're saying convenience, right? Would it be so much about convenience if we weren't so bombarded with a ton of information? Because I feel like because we can only take so much information that it makes us exhausted after a while. Maybe that's why we're looking for convenience, because we're just too exhausted with the amount of info we consume. So now we're looking for an easy shortcut for another kind of information we're looking for. Because I believe for myself that if I wasn't bombarded with so much information, I will have so much energy to do everything. Well, actually, COVID was a good time for that, which was like the event was unfortunate, but the situation I was in was a good time for me to take a step back. Like last year, we did a thing where every Sunday we did screen-free Sunday, so we never went on the screen or anything for every Sunday, and it created this openness for me where I was like, oh, I want to cook, I want to do this, I want to clean the place, I want to do everything. And now I have the time. So I'm like, man, maybe I was just bombarded with too much info that it made it feel like I needed convenience, but they want to sell me convenience because I don't need it. I can literally get shit done. So that's why now, because I got so used to cooking during COVID, I hardly eat at restaurants. I don't remember the last time I ordered Uber Eats, because I look at dishes, I look at food, I look at like different dishes, and I'll be like, I totally cooked that. And why is this $30 or like $20? Now I'm gonna make this. Now I'm just gonna go to the grocery, buy the shit, and just make it. You know, then it sort of developed that, and then I was surprised myself to be able to have that time and effort to want to do these extra steps. But now it made me think, like, maybe it's because they were just bombarding me with so much info that my only way out at this point is convenience. You know,
interesting. I didn't correlate access to information with the generation of apathy that leads to an addiction to convenience.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's what I'm starting to see it as. Because during COVID, I'm hardly on the internet. And because of that, I all of a sudden started doing a lot of things in real life. It's as if I've made space, like in my, I've liberated a certain amount of gigabytes of RAM in my brain. Now I could take in more programs. You know? It's like we have too many tabs open.
Yeah.
So now we're looking for a convenient way to just delete all this shit.
Or
And
to
so
keep
we
your
can
tabs open.
Or keep it open and have
exactly.
a convenient way to open another one without having to do the research.
But you see, you hit the nail on the head, because eventually you have to close all your tabs, man.
It's only human. It's only human. Some people end up in a very unfortunate situation by closing all the tabs, which could be a life, you know, because that's why a lot of people get in a situation like that. Like I could only imagine the amount of stress, especially like teenagers in high school, when they only used to get bullied in school, but now they're getting bullied by the fucking world. So it's really heavy. It's too much information. We're only human, man. There's only so much we can take. I was already flabbergasted by math when I was a kid, so I can only imagine by everything else. So I treat myself in a very like realistic way. Like I cannot take that much info, and if I start feeling weird, it's probably because I've overconsumed something.
an eye-opening, inspiring exchange. Lunice, thank you for your
course.
time, for your generosity, for your words of wisdom, the gems that you've dropped on this here masterclass. I can't wait to hear what our beat makers have made with your pack, your crate that you've provided.
Yeah, I can't wait. That's my favorite part. That's the most inspiring part for me.
You wait till you hear what our people did to your shit.
I can't wait, man. It's gonna be so fun.
This has been Loop Sessions Masterclass with Lunice. On behalf of the Artbeat Montreal organization, Ausgang, Plaza, thank you for tuning in. Let's get into these beats. That was fucking fire. Thank you.
Of course.